The courtroom feels colder than I remember. Maybe it's the marble floors, or maybe it's my sister's heels scraping against them, the restless voice of a woman who realizes she's already lost. I fold my hands gently in my lap. The calm composure of someone who walked into this room knowing the future was already with me. The judge clears his throat. A shuffle of papers. A legal document contains every nightmare they've gifted me, and every dream they've tried to steal. He reads aloud. Pursuant to the previously filed joint inheritance clause, the transfer of assets cannot proceed without the agreement of both daughters. Control, by default, will be given to the petitioner. A long pause. The air tightens. The entire room turns to look at me, the daughter they've forgotten to love. My parents' lawyer drops his pen. My sister gasps as if she's choking on her own justice. What clause? What is he talking about? She huffs toward the empty seats where our parents should have sat. Her panic tastes sweeter than any applause. Her perfectly styled hairdo doesn't hide the fear in her eyes. The mascara is already trembling. She looks at me as if suddenly remembering that I'm there. But it's too late for her to recognize me now. My parents' faces, framed in large portraits on the courtroom wall for the memorial hearing, suddenly look accusatory. But not at me. At him. At themselves. All those years they've watched me. All those years they've told me I'm not enough. They've never realized that I'm quietly learning how power works. The judge continues. All properties revert to joint ownership, now managed solely by Ms. ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ My name rings out, like thunder that has been waiting for years to strike. My sister stands, slapping her hands on the table. No. She cheated us. She doesn't deserve anything. Her lawyer tugs at her sleeve, desperate to calm his anger, but dignity has already left her. Whispers rise in the courtroom. Pity for me, shock for her. I slowly rise from my chair. Not to celebrate, but to make sure she can see what victory looks like when an underestimated girl stops being silent. I take a step toward her. Her breath hitches. She takes a step back. Funny how courage fades when the victim refuses to be vulnerable. A small smile tugs at my lips, controlled, not cruel. Because this is not a moment of joy. This is a moment to let fear sink in. Deep. Permanent. I lean in close, so close that only she can hear me. I warned you, I whisper. You should have read what you were signing. The courtroom door opens. A loud scream cuts through the tension. A young man enters, her fiancé. Or her fiancé-to-be. Her eyes escape his as he reaches for the judge, holding up additional documents. His voice is low, but high enough to shatter her entire future. Your Honor, I have something to add. My sister freezes, and I feel the past swirling like a scar, inviting memories back. Flashes. Childhood. Neglect. Likes. This victory didn't start today. It started the first day they made me feel invisible. The wind outside rattles the windows, as if trying to remind me that storms shape trees and people. But inside our house, the storm was always human. My mother's voice, sharp as broken glass. My father's silence, colder than winter tiles. We lived in the same house, but I was always extra. An unwanted chapter in a book that celebrated only one character, my sister. She was the golden child. Her laugh was sweet. Her mistakes were forgiven. Her achievements framed. And me. I was the background. A shadow in pictures. A name that is rarely spoken with pride. I remember one birthday. Mine, especially. Everyone forgot. Not even a cheap cake, not even a candle stub. But when was it her turn? The house turned into a palace. Balloons everywhere, actors, gifts piled high above me. They called her a princess. I was just a girl who brought scissors to open her gifts. Even our shoes told different stories. She got new things every season. Shiny, imported, bright. I wore hand-me-downs. The soles were as thin as patience. If I ever asked for something new, I always got the same answer. Be grateful for what you have. Being treated like a benefactor, charity? School was the only place I tried to breathe differently. I studied hard, buried myself in books. Not the ones they bought her, but when she got bored, they threw them away. When the results came, and my name flashed at the top of the list, I remember running home with the certificate in my hand, heart pounding with hope. But my parents looked at the paper, then at me, and just shook their heads, as if the excellence from their forgetful daughter was a coincidence. It's just luck, they said. Don't expect too much. That night, I cried into my pillow. But those tears were silent too, because I knew no one would come to check on me. My sister? She would have gotten a celebration party for coming second. Yet here I was, begging for a pat on the head. That's when I learned something important. In my home, love wasn't earned by achievements. Love was inherited, and I wasn't in a will. So I stopped waiting, stopped hoping, stopped asking. Instead, I watched, educated, remembering every word they threw my way, every insult, every dismissal, every time they picked on me. Every moment was snatched away, and I was getting faster. My loneliness didn't break me. It made me a weapon, silent, precise, patient, because one day I promised myself they would remember my name. And that promise became the heartbeat of my life. I look at this house now, still pretending to be perfect on the outside. But I know the truth. There were always cracks in the foundation. They never expected those cracks to turn into me. As I retreat from the memory, the courtroom lights flicker over my thoughts. And that promise whispers again, this time louder. I've become invisible, fading away until the next moment, because the girl they ignored is about to change everything. I still remember the night they made it official. Dinner had barely been served when my mother cleared her throat, raising her glass as if she were about to toast a national victory. Once we're gone, she said, her eyes fixed proudly on my sister. Everything, the house, the business, the savings, it will all be hers. Her words didn't even pause to look my way. It was as if I didn't exist at that table. My fork slipped from my fingers, a small metallic jingle, and for a moment the room was silent. But no one bothered to ask if I was okay. My father nodded in satisfaction, while my sister smiled as if she had just won a lottery she had never bought a ticket for. I forced a smile, the kind that hurt more than tears. I didn't want them to see the crack growing inside my chest. Later, when I mustered up the courage to ask for help with my university fees, my father didn't even look up from his laptop. We can't afford it right now, he said bluntly. Study something cheap, or just get a job. Cheap. The only thing I had was an education, something I worked for. But in that house, my dreams were treated as an expense, while this one was treated as an investment. Because a week later, my sister got a brand new car, white, shiny, wrapped in red ribbons, standing like a monument to oppression right outside the front door. They stood by him, taking photos, celebrating his future. as I watched from my bedroom window, holding my acceptance letter like a trash can. And then there he was, his fiancée, the perfect smile, the perfect suit, and eyes that sparkled with money. He kept complimenting my parents on their success, barely acknowledging me except for a fake polite gesture. As he hugged my sister, I heard him whisper, "Soon it will all be ours." Ours. Not his, not theirs, but his. Because wealth was the only love story he believed in. I felt something brutally honest that day. I wasn't the daughter in this house. I was a placeholder, a reminder of imperfection, a backup plan he never intended to use. Their message was deeply engraved. I was family only by blood, not by worth. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. Instead, I swallowed every morsel of humiliation, letting the bitterness grow stronger. Because when people push you into the dark long enough, you learn to see everything clearly. I took that rejection from the university to heart, not as a defeat, but as a blueprint for a rebellion they would never see coming. Later, standing outside that house, backpack on my shoulder, the future uncertain but finally mine, I whispered to myself, they chose him today, but one day they will regret underestimating me. The streetlight flickered above me, like fate winking in agreement, and when I walked away from a home that had never felt like mine, I still didn't know the most important detail. They had only encouraged me to take everything from them, fade away until the decisive moment that changes everything. I didn't pack much the night I left. Just a few clothes, my certificates, and a version of myself they couldn't break anymore. No tears. No dramatic speeches. Just the soft click of the door, finally closing behind me. The streets felt unfamiliar, but so much freer than this house. I found a small room near the university, leaky ceiling, flickering lights, walls so thin you could hear your neighbor coughing at night. But this was my place, my beginning. I remember staring at the scholarship form, hands shaking. If I failed, there was no one to catch me, no one to encourage me. I was my own safety net now. But I passed. I earned my place, not because they helped me, but because they didn't. The first day of law school felt like stepping into a different universe. Heavy books, intense debates, cases full of betrayal and justice. It felt personal. Every rule, every loophole, every court battle. I was learning how the world works, and how people like my parents lose when they think they're untouchable. I hoped my parents would change. Hopefully, one day, they'll see me. But hope is just a fancy word for waiting. And I waited. The nights were the hardest. Dinner was often just instant noodles. I left my house, but I didn't stop being invisible. While my classmates went to parties, I stayed in the library, studying wills, inheritance laws, property laws. The pages whispered secrets, and I listened. I felt that the power was not high. It's hidden, in signatures, in clauses, in a single line that no one notices until it's too late. I didn't want revenge in the first place. I wanted justice. I wanted them to say, "We were wrong about you." But with every phone call they ignored, every vacation they spent without thinking about me, every family photo they posted without me, justice turned into something sharp. There was a night, a torrential rain, lightning tearing through the sky. I sat at my small desk, immersed in legal paperwork. My eyes burned from hours of reading, and I finally understood my truth. If they didn't give me a place in the family, I would lay the entire foundation of the family instead. No yelling, no threats, just one clever sentence tucked inside the legal document, who would one day bring everything down on them. I wrote the first draft of this clause with a calmness that frightened even me. A clause that would turn their favoritism into their downfall. A clause that would rewrite the end of my story. I signed my name at the bottom of the page, not as their daughter, but as the woman they turned into an adversary. A slow smile spread across my face as thunder rumbled outside. Justice had awakened in me, and it was not gentle. I closed my eyes, imagining the day they would realize what I had done. Shock. Panic. Alas, they had no idea. Their betrayal had become my weapon, and that weapon was almost ready to strike. Fate offers me the perfect opportunity. They thought I was stupid. My parents sat across from me with those polite, fake smiles, the kind they only wore when they needed something from me. A stack of documents lay on the table, thick enough to hold secrets they never intended for me to discover. Mom cleared her throat softly. It's just formalities, sweetheart. Your signature is required because, well, legal things. Her voice was sugar with poison underneath. Dad didn't bother pretending. He tapped the papers impatiently. You're getting in the way. We need this processed quickly. In the way. That's all I had ever been, a shadow behind their prized daughter, Alina. The golden child who could do no wrong. The one they adored so loudly they forgot I even existed. But today, they would remember me. I traced my fingers over the neatly printed words. Nobody expected me to read. Nobody expected me to understand private legal jargon, the estate transfer, the business shares, the property deeds, all conveniently landing in Alina's lap. Everything they once promised me, erased in ink. Of course, I murmured with a polite nod. Let me just review. They exchanged a glance. Dad chuckled. You? Review. I smiled without moving my eyes from the page. Little did they know, I had spent months preparing for this moment. Nights studying legal clauses under a dim lamp. Whispered consultations with the one friend they never knew I had, Hannah, a brilliant lawyer who understood betrayal like a second language. My heart was thudding, but my hand was steady as I slid a typed paper across the table. What's this? Mom frowned. Just a tiny condition, I said, voice innocent, calm. To protect the property, for both daughters. It ensures nothing is transferred unless we both approve. That way, if anything ever goes wrong, neither of us can be taken advantage of. Alina scoffed. Who would take advantage of us? It's family. I looked directly at her. Exactly. Dad dismissed it without a second thought. Fine. Sign it. We don't have all day. Pen scratches. Their signatures flowed effortlessly, careless, arrogant. They didn't even look at the clause. The clause that would destroy their entire plan. When it was done, I excused myself quietly, documents pressed to my chest, heartbeat like war drums. I met Hannah an hour later at her office, a tiny corner room filled with case files and justice. She read through the papers, eyes widening. Lena, she said, voice low with admiration, this clause gives you equal control. They can't push you out now. You just changed everything. A slow burn lit inside me, not loud enough to be a fire yet, but glowing like embers waiting for a storm. Mom's voice rang in my head. It's just a formality. No. It was a ticking time bomb wrapped in signatures. Hannah placed the papers into a secure legal folder. Locked. Filed. Untouchable. For the first time in my life, I wasn't powerless. I stepped out of her office into the cool evening air, breathing deeper than I had in years. The city lights shimmered like opportunities. My pulse steadied. Let them think they've won. Let them celebrate. Because when they finally try to strip me of everything, they'll discover one tiny mistake that ruins them all. They underestimated the daughter they ignored. And as I walked home, a message pinged on my phone. From Dad. Do not tell anyone about today. We'll discuss your role later. A cold smile curled across my lips. Oh, Dad, you have no idea what my role really is. Next step, make sure they can't escape the trap they just signed. The real game was about to begin. I used to think grief would break me, but when I stood outside the courtroom in my black dress, clutching the only shred of warmth left inside me, I felt nothing. My parents had passed only 2 weeks ago. A car accident, sudden, cruel. People said I should mourn, that I should cry. But how do you mourn those who never saw you? The court doors creaked open, and I walked in, alone. The smell of polished wood, the cold silence of justice, it all felt like a stage prepared for a performance I had been rehearsing for years. Then she arrived. Alina, my sister, draped in expensive black silk, diamond earrings shimmering like they were already part of her inheritance. She walked with the confidence of a queen claiming her empire. Her fiancé walked beside her, tall, handsome, smug, like he was about to become richer by association. She didn't look at me. Why would she? In her mind, I didn't exist anymore. She took her seat, flipping her hair back, as though cameras were pointed at her. I heard her whisper to her lawyer, laughing under breath. This will be quick. She has nothing. I lowered my gaze, letting her think that. Let her feel powerful. For the very last time. The judge entered. Papers shuffled. My heart pounded in rhythmic warning. This is it. Alina's lawyer stood first, presenting a newer will, one that transferred every asset directly to her. Houses, businesses, bank accounts, everything I once called home. She was the only responsible child, he claimed smugly, therefore the sole heir. Everyone nodded sympathetically, validating her manufactured angelic image. Then the judge turned his focus to me. Miss Lena, do you contest this will? I stood slowly, every muscle trembling but my voice steady. Yes, Your Honor, I do. Alina finally looked at me, the first crack in her perfect composure. I handed the envelope, the one Hannah had guarded for months, to the bailiff. The judge unfolded the document carefully. His brows rose as he read line by line. Silence stretched. Seconds became thunder. This document, the judge began, predates the latest will. It includes a legal clause requiring joint approval by both daughters for any transfer of inherited assets. Alina blinked rapidly. Her lawyer stuttered. That can't be. She didn't know what she was signing. She did, I interrupted softly. I explained it. They signed. Voluntarily. Her fiancé shifted away from her, inch by inch. He could smell the downfall. The judge cleared his throat, voice echoing like a gavel strike to the heart. This clause remains legally binding. Therefore, all estate assets shall revert to joint ownership, under the administrator appointed in this petition. He looked directly into my eyes. That administrator is you, Miss Lena. My breath caught. A quiet, powerful moment. Gasps filled the courtroom. Alina's face drained of color, fear cracking through her arrogant facade. But that means, she whispered. That means, the judge replied firmly, You cannot sell, transfer, or claim anything without your sister's approval. Her fiancé rose abruptly. You tricked me. You tricked everyone. He shook his head with disgust. I'm not marrying into this mess. He walked out, just like that. Her perfect future, escaping through those courtroom doors. Alina reached out pathetically. Daniel, please. But no one listened to her anymore. Because the room was watching me. The ignored daughter. The underestimated one. The quiet storm they never saw coming. Standing tall, finally seen. Alina's voice trembled. Lena, you won't actually. I stepped closer, leaning in so only she could hear. You took everything from me, and now I decide what you get to keep. Her eyes shimmered with tears, not of sadness, but of terror. The judge's gavel struck. Court adjourned. As I turned to leave, the weight finally lifted from my shoulders. No tears. Just a cold, steady sense of justice unfolding exactly as planned. But this wasn't over. I had power now. Real power. And I intended to use every last bit of it. Because revenge tastes better when served legally. People always assume revenge is chaos. Screaming. Smashing things. Fire and fury. But the real revenge, the kind that scars, is quiet. Days after court, relatives gathered at the house, my house, offering condolences and carefully wrapped praises. They looked at me differently now. The invisible daughter had suddenly become the one with the keys. The power. The final signature. Aunt Syra squeezed my hand, whispering with teary pride, You were always the stronger one, we just didn't see it. I smiled politely, but inside, her words cut. They did see me. They simply didn't care. In the corner of the living room, my sister sat hunched over, designer makeup smudged into defeat. She didn't look like the golden girl anymore. No radiance, no applause. Just a woman who realized her throne wasn't guaranteed. She stared at the marble floor, twisting tissues in her shaking hands. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. Lena, please. Just that one word. Please. It was funny. I used to say that word all the time. Please notice me. Please love me. Please let me belong. She never once listened. I walked past her slowly, my heels tapping like a countdown. She grabbed my wrist, desperate, and for the first time in years, our eyes locked. No jealousy. No superiority. Just fear. I don't have anywhere else to go, she whispered, voice breaking. Daniel left. Friends stopped answering. I can't survive like this. My heart fluttered, not with satisfaction, but with a strange ache I wasn't prepared for. She was cruel to me, but she was still my sister. Still, I didn't reach for her hand. I didn't hug her. I didn't rescue her. Now you know how it feels to be unwanted, I murmured quietly. She flinched as if my words slapped her harder than any hand could. Relatives watched us, breath held, waiting to see whether I'd crush her or lift her. But revenge isn't loud. Justice doesn't always look violent. I leaned in closer, my voice soft, calm, almost gentle. You made me feel alone my whole life. Today, I choose myself. Her hand slipped away from my wrist, falling limp against her lap. I stood tall, the sunlight from the window glowing behind me like a curtain call. Without another word, I turned and walked out, keys in my hand, power in my silence. The front door clicked shut, sealing the end of a chapter she thought she authored. As I stepped into the fresh air, a breeze lifted my hair, like freedom brushing past my skin. For the first time in years I felt Seen, not by them, but by the world. By myself. Some victories don't need applause. Some revenge isn't about destroying them, but finally choosing you. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's written in tiny letters at the bottom of a page. So tell me, what would you do if your own family tried to erase your existence? Comment below and subscribe for more justice.